He was just passing through the airport like any other soldier, uniform neat, luggage in hand, mind on his next mission. No one paid him much attention until a pair of officers singled him out. What seemed like a routine check quickly turned into public humiliation. Shouts, stares, the weight of accusation, but he hadn't done anything wrong. In the next few moments, everything changed. One discovery would leave the officers frozen, the bystanders speechless, and reveal a truth nobody saw coming. Who was this soldier really? And why would the world gasp when they found out? If you've ever faced something unfair, drop your story in the comments. Let's make sure your voice is heard. He wasn't just another traveler moving through a crowded terminal. He was a man who had given years of his life in service. His uniform carried silent weight. The long nights in desert heat, the sleepless missions where danger shadowed every step, the sacrifices of being far from home. For most passengers, the airport was a place of stress and schedules. But for him, it was just another stop in a life of duty and discipline. He carried himself with quiet pride, his bag slung over his shoulder, his head held high. He wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, he simply blended into the steady current of people, ready to board and move on. But under the surface, he carried something far greater than luggage. His name, his rank, his accomplishments, none of it was visible to those who only saw the color of his skin. The truth was, he had grown used to stares, whispers, and subtle glances of doubt. Still, he never expected what would happen here, in the middle of a bustling airport, surrounded by strangers. This was supposed to be just another journey. But in less than a minute, a storm was about to begin. One that would reveal not only who he was, but also how quickly prejudice could blind people to the truth. The first sign came quietly, a pair of officers watching from the corner of the terminal. At first, he thought nothing of it. Airports were full of security, and uniformed men were part of the scenery. But then the stares didn't fade. Their eyes tracked his every step, narrowing as though his presence was already a crime. When they finally approached, it wasn't with courtesy. Their voices were sharp, demanding, accusing without reason. Passengers slowed their pace, curious eyes gathering as the officers circled him. One reached for his bag without asking. The other barked orders, treating him not as a soldier, not even as a man, just as a suspect. The humiliation burned deeper than the questions. They didn't ask where he was headed or why he wore the uniform he had earned through years of service. They treated him as if the fabric meant nothing, as if his sacrifice vanished under the weight of their prejudice. To them, his skin spoke louder than his service. People began to stop and stare. Some whispered, others raised phones, recording the scene like entertainment. He could feel the heat rising in his chest, but discipline held him still. Every soldier learns restraint. But standing silent under false suspicion was a battle of its own. Then came the moment that cut deepest. The officers forced him aside, hands rough on his arm, ignoring his explanations. They accused him of impersonation, as though his very identity was a lie. A decorated soldier stripped in seconds of dignity by men who never cared to see the truth. Each word they spat, each laugh from bystanders, was another wound. And yet he endured, because he knew something they didn't. The truth was about to surface, and when it did, the shock would not just silence the crowd. It would haunt the men who had humiliated him. But in that moment, the tension was unbearable. Would they drag him away? Would the crowd believe them? Or would the truth finally break through before it was too late? The moment came like a breaking wave. One officer shoved him against the cold wall of the terminal, his uniform pressed into the glass as bystanders gasped. Another officer pulled out handcuffs, the metallic clink echoing through the terminal like a sentence already passed. Cameras flashed, phones recorded, whispers turned to shouts. To the crowd, it looked like a dangerous man being subdued. To him, it felt like his very humanity was being stripped away. The soldier's heart pounded, but his training kept him still. He had faced explosions, enemy fire, missions where every breath could be his last. But this was different. Here, in his own country, he wasn't seen as a protector or a hero. He was seen as a threat. The officers accused him of fraud, shouting that no real soldier looked like him, that his uniform must be stolen. Every word was another knife. Rage burned inside, but he knew the wrong move could destroy him in front of the world. Then a voice cut through the chaos. A higher-ranking officer, rushing toward the scene, eyes fixed on the man they had cornered. He stopped in his tracks, recognition spreading across his face. Silence rippled through the crowd as whispers changed. They knew him. The soldiers in the airport, the staff behind the counters. People were beginning to realize who he truly was. The cuffs hovered inches from his wrists. The humiliation had reached its peak. The injustice laid bare before hundreds of watching eyes. And in the next breath, the truth would surface. One that would shatter every false accusation and turn this scene of shame into a moment of unforgettable reckoning. The moment the higher-ranking officer stepped forward, the entire atmosphere shifted. His face tightened in horror as he recognized the man being pinned against the wall. With urgency in his voice, he ordered the cuffs lowered, his tone sharp, commanding the others to step back. The crowd hushed, phones still recording as whispers spread. This wasn't just any soldier. This was a decorated veteran, a man who had led missions that saved countless lives. A soldier honored for bravery far beyond what these officers could imagine. The truth hit like a thunderclap. The men who humiliated him had not only disrespected a soldier, they had disrespected a hero. Their arrogance was exposed in front of the very people they tried to impress. The soldier stood tall, his uniform now a symbol not just of service, but of the strength it took to endure humiliation with dignity. But while the officers backed down, the damage was already done. The stares, the laughter, the assumption of guilt. Those wounds don't vanish when the truth comes out. For him, the memory of that moment would linger. And for everyone watching, it was impossible to ignore the reality. If even a decorated soldier could be treated as a criminal because of his skin color, what hope was there for others with no uniform to shield them? This wasn't just his story. It was a reflection of countless others silenced, dismissed, or humiliated. A reminder that racism doesn't pause for uniforms, titles, or medals. It cuts deeper, striking at identity itself. So the question remains, how many more moments like, this must the world witness before we finally decide that enough is enough? Like and subscribe for more.